Liseth, hi.
Hi,
Good to
what's
have you
happening?
on the show. Um, I am very excited for this. You have there's a whole lot about you that we're going to discuss, your journey, your path, and yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. Do you have anything to say before we start?
Same. I'm so excited. I wish it
Cool.
was in person, but hey,
Yeah, I
probably in a
agree.
Wally movie, just kind of doing
I
it.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, one day, one day. So you are. I'll do a little background about you, and then we will jump into it. But Lizeth Velez, you're an Army and Air Force vet and founder CEO of LJV Construction. You
Development.
LJV Development, excuse me. And you immigrated from Colombia at age 7, and through your life here in the States, you also joined JRTC in high school, and then you joined the Guard for the Army first, and then the Air Force, correct?
Yes.
With
Yeah.
humble beginnings as a truck driver.
I
Is that right?
did. Yeah.
Oh
And I
man,
needed my freedom, Freddie. I needed to,
yeah.
be in the wheel.
Yeah, behind the wheel, of course. You gotta. Yep, cool. And you joined for both the National Guard. With your service, are you still serving, by the way?
No. Well, indirectly,
Mm,
but no.
okay.
No.
Yeah, true. We'll talk about that. But with that military service, you brought all your lessons in grit, resilience, and leadership, and you launched LJV, where you're focused on creating opportunities, empowering teams, and just really making a difference in infrastructure and environments. I want to brag on you a little bit. LJV, you ranked 115 in the Inc. 5000 in 2024, number 3 on the Boston Business Journal for fastest 50 growing companies in 2025, and also number 7 in the Vets 100 for 2025, which is wow, that's really awesome. And you are an 8A SDVOSB women-owned construction company. And in 2023, SBA named you the Massachusetts Veteran Small Business Owner of the Year. And in 2025, you were honored as I mean, we can keep talking about all your accomplishments. I mean, yeah, that you were 2025. You were Women's Business Enterprise Star by WBE National Council, and now you are pursuing your MBA, your Executive MBA at MIT Sloan. Right?
Yes.
Do you have
That's the best
time?
part.
Is
The awards are back here, but the MIT part, that's
now and in the future, right?
yes,
That's
yes.
awesome. I'd love to hear more about that journey. Um, well, that's a lengthy introduction. Do you have anything to say before we start?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I promise you, I'm not obsessed with collecting awards, even though they're nice. I think that with every award also comes a lot of just responsibility, which I'm excited. It's like bring it on, and let's see how we can do more. So it's
Mm.
not necessarily like, you win something and then you're just kind of like, okay, we were done. It's just a never ending journey, and it's just something that I'm really excited to continue to do and pursue.
Yeah, and you're making a huge impact to the world from what we've talked about beforehand. So that's really great. I actually want to share one story too before how we met. Right, we met in the CEO circle, the Bunker Labs IVMF CEO circle, and it was a few years ago when there was an outgoing cohort and the new incoming cohort. And obviously, the outgoing cohort, we all knew each other, and the incoming folks, you guys are brand new, right? It was in New York, and I remember it was in December because that's when they always have these change of commands or passing the torch or whatnot. Um, we all were just hanging out at a bar, a group of like 20 or 30 of us, and most of us were the outgoing folks. And I remember you were there with a couple of other folks from the incoming, and it was time to pay the bill. and we were like, oh, we were all like trying to figure it out. But then you were like, hey, just put it on my card. I got it. And I was like, who is this girl? Who is this? And you're just like, yeah, I got it. It's for, great beginnings or for new beginnings or something. And you bought you paid the bill for all of us. And I was like, okay, she's cool. She's real
Is this
cool.
the first time you had a woman buy you a drink? To say the truth, man.
No, 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 no. No, but no, but like you just did it so nonchalantly, and you were just so cool about it. And upon knowing you, you are super down to earth and just a humble person. So I love it. Um,
Thank you. Thank you for that story. Because
yeah.
I was I was scared. I was like, what is he gonna say? What did I do here? But yeah, that definitely sounds like me. If it was up to me and I had unlimited amount of resources, I would be buying drinks for everyone and
You know,
food.
I love that too. I do that quite a bit as well because it's just a great way to get everyone, happy. So, that being said, would you tell us a little bit about like your beginnings? Because you immigrated from Medellín, and
Yeah.
yeah, tell me.
Yeah, so I landed in I landed in Newark, New Jersey. My father had already been here. My mother had been here as well, but she went back to go get my one of my older brothers and myself and brought us back to kind of get the whole family reunited. I'm one of four, and so four brothers, one girl. And so I didn't see my dad in probably like 2 to 3 years at that point. And I was just excited. I was excited to be finally in America, the lands of opportunity. And we made our way to Lowell, Massachusetts, which is where I grew up. I spent most of my adult or teenage, young age in Lowell, Massachusetts. And so it was interesting because I think when you're young, you're just kind of going through the motions. You're
Mm.
just doing what your parents tell you to do. You're just going with it. And so I saw, I guess what I saw from my parents were just two very determined people who were extremely hardworking. And, I won't say we ever missed a meal or anything, but we definitely were extremely just humble. And, my parents never really learned English. So, for them, the job options were very limited, and they've always been very limited. And so, just kind of being the youngest of them all, my little brother came on when I was 9 years old,
Mm.
so probably like 2 years after I was here. And I think from that point, it was like, okay, I have this other responsibility, and I have this other human being to take
Mm.
care of. And because I was learning English and I was advancing, it was almost like I was starting to develop like this these responsibilities that I just kind of started carrying throughout my life. And now I'm trying to release some of those responsibilities.
Yeah.
But it was helpful. It made me who I am, and it really taught me a lot about just navigating things that were probably like adult things, but navigating them in a very young age just made me, I think it made me that much stronger as an adult now.
What made you want to join JRTC and eventually the military?
I love this country. I think, if you ever hear any of my other interviews, or I feel like I'm a broken record at this point, but I truly love this country. I think that, yes, it's not perfect and we have a lot of work to do, but there's just so much opportunity here. And there's just this sense of, of like hope. And at least for me, it was like, wow, especially as a woman, like you're not gonna have to be these things that, like you're not gonna have to be a housemaid, or like certain things that are just such a cultural bound. And in certain places, especially like I would say I wouldn't say Colombia is that way now, but it's definitely like something that was part of the culture as we grew up. And so I always just wanted more. I've always been a big visionary, and I've always, you know, I've like now looking back, I definitely had that entrepreneurial chip on my shoulder
Mm.
the whole time, from like selling newspapers to doing X, Y, and Z. So being part of the military was kind of like the one thing that I really, really, really wanted to do. And
Mm.
I think one of the hardest things was like not like just getting to a point in my military career where I was like, okay, I don't want to reenlist and I don't want to stay here. And so that was a very big transition point for me. But serving, being part of just the U.S. military was like everything.
The greatest honor. Yeah, I
Mhm.
absolutely agree with you. Concur. Just a quick comment about the humble beginnings. I mean, I too come from, immigrated parents. I was born in the States, but my parents knew no English and just had nothing. And you share that same story, same background, yet last year you did $8 million in work with your clients, for contracting. So crushing it, killing it. I'm super happy for you. Kind of the segue here is, what do you, so you're an entrepreneur, you started your business, you love what you do. What do you think your superpower is?
Well, my superpower is just like never giving up. I think that, and I don't know, I'm at the point now, Freddie, where it's like bring it on, make it hard, like make it harder. And it's just maybe I'm just kind of like so accustomed of being in that
Mm,
like ring, that to me is it's like at first there was a point in my life where I was like, why does it have to be so hard, or why is it always a challenge, or I can't wait to the point where I'm like so happy.
mm,
And I found that the more I leaned in into the hard points of my life, and the more I shifted my mindset to for it to be like, why is this being done to me, as opposed to like, what am I learning from this situation, or how much better am I going to be because of the situation, has just made a whole lot of difference in just how I approach things. And you said, yes, we made 8 million, but we also spent a lot. Right now our banks and our bonding people are not very happy with us because we overspent. A lot of it was overspending on what we call pursuit cost in construction, where you're trying to win bids and get clients estimates and stuff like that. But a lot of it too was on people, and trying to just give opportunities to people, and all these things. So it's definitely a balance. And the one thing I wish, if I was queen for a day, is that banks and other people could see people as tangible assets, and that's just not the case, right? Those are not tangible assets in a balance sheet. And so just kind of growing through that and understanding like the language of financial accounting, the language of what it really means to be a CEO and running a business, has been incredibly powerful. And so you know yeah, I'm just resilient. I'm like, hey, bring it on. And I'm also like really good at, I call it, like I'm a mapper investigator. Like I don't just settle for one solution.
mm.
Like I always think like there is multiple ways of doing something. And I think sometimes we get so like tunnel vision of like, especially when we know something works,
Hmm.
it's like, well, it worked before. Why can it work now? Well, no. Like there maybe there's a shift in mindset. Maybe there's a shift in culture, whatever. Like how people see things. There's a shift in government. So being able to really think through challenges, and being creative in terms of like how many solutions can actually be exist to this problem. And I think that the more we have, and the more resources we have as people, is like we start losing some of that. Like there's a huge power that comes from not having, because when you don't have,
True.
you have no choice but to make, it's
What
like
to
you make
do?
lemonade out of lemons, like you
Yeah.
just do it.
Yep.
And so I've recently kind of been humbled by, sometimes, you ask somebody else that maybe is somewhere else and they're like, well, I mean, why didn't you think about that? And then it's like, oh, that's actually very simple, and it doesn't have to be all this complex. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love what you said, and sales covers all sins, right? If you have a lot of sales, you got a lot of money, you're like, whatever, let's just get it done. But once those resources are constrained, you got to make the best of everything else you do. The other thing that made me smile while you were talking was just your mentality. It's what I've gone through in my military career, but it's the embrace the suck mentality, right? You just embrace it because you know you're going to come out better,
Yeah.
afterwards. So, cool. That is your superpower. That is your what's made you successful. Can you tell us what LJV development what makes you guys different? What makes you guys special?
Yeah. We care. We truly, truly care.
Mm.
Our mission is to build spaces and places so that working and living is just better. That's not just a slogan. Like that is something that is extremely personal to me. But it's like, what kind of things could we be a part of that are truly gonna make somebody live and work better? Because if people are operating at their best self, it's like it's a domino effect, right? It's not like it's not just them. It's like also their community, the community's community is such a ripple effect. And so I don't take that lightly. And so
Mm.
how we approach projects is with a lot of customer service, maybe too much to a fault.
Mm.
A lot of just collaborating with our clients. I, for example, I've had a architect engineer in our team for a long time now who started as an intern, and the vision for that role was like, how do we help assist our clients in making some decisions. And, it wasn't written in my contract. It wasn't like something that every small general contractor has, but it was like I knew that this could help the process. And so, I'm still learning how to do things. Definitely not perfect from,
Hmm.
who I hire and how and when I hire them, but I do think that I'm at peace with the decisions I made because they've all been in the sake of making the process better, in the
Mm.
sake of being a better partner. Especially because we do a lot of federal contracting. I look at all these agencies' mission, and sometimes I get so aggravated because I'm like, I feel like I believe in your mission more than you do. But that's a side note.
Mm.
And it's like all these
Funny.
agencies are there
Mm.
because
Mm.
they have a mission. Like,
Mm.
we work for the National Park Services. It's like they're protecting, the treasures and these national forests
Mm.
and those beautiful places that we have. I don't have to talk about DOD and what they do, but like
Hmm.
all these agencies just have such a powerful mission, and we definitely want to be part of like making those missions tick.
That's beautiful. That is very beautiful. I also believe that just the environment shapes quite a bit. It's more than you think, right? For me, I remember just starting with, building my business, and it was like in the corner of my little place I lived in, and it was dark, and it was just like it cluttered and just constraints. But once you get out to a beautiful place, right, or just a place that really makes you think bigger and you're at peace, you can do something so much more impactful. So going back to your point on people, that's the purpose of our conversation today. People, the wins, the good, bad, and ugly of all of those hires you made. Can you tell us the first kind of key hire you made when you started your business that really impacted the trajectory of your growth or of your progress?
Yeah. You know, this is a hard question for me just because there was something that I read from, I don't know if you've heard of VIP, the Veterans in Procurement folks, and they had like the 10 Keynes rules, and
Mm,
one of them was like, the people that got you here might not be the people that get you there.
mm,
And so, unfortunately, a lot of those people that first started with me are no longer here. I would say right now we're probably, outside from some of the interns that have been with us for a while, we have a whole new team. One of them, one of the people that are no longer here is actually like one of my brothers,
mm.
right? So I would say that there's been multiple key people, to include my brother that have like shaped and helped to where we are. I think that each and every one of those people were definitely part of those building blocks. And, sometimes we don't see eye to eye on like performance or expectations or, what people need to do. But I do believe that they played a part, right? Like, whether it was good or bad or,
Mm,
in between is
hmm.
like they played a part in getting us there. And so, we're a learning organization. We were continuously learning. We're always trying to get better. And so, yeah, I think they all did.
Well,
I don't
let me
think.
ask you,
Mhm.
let me drill down a little bit. You
Mhm.
started with like three people, right?
Well, I started I started by myself, and then I hired one person. And then that was, so what happened was that in January of 2020,
Mm,
I was working for the liquor industry. I was a market manager for Sincoro Tequila, and I had already started LJV, but I was kind of, in between and just developing my business model and all these things. And in January 2020, I was like, no, I need to jump ship. I need to do this like full time.
mm.
And so I was kind of like there. And in May of 2020, we won our first contract. And so I thought, well, we won our first contract. We can do it. Like, it's like you're doing and taking all this energy to just get to a point where you're like winning a contract, and
How'd you win
Lord and
it?
behold,
Sorry, like is it
yeah.
kind of like blindly by luck?
No, no, no. It was a Corps of Engineers job. It was a
Mm,
fencing job, and
mm,
it was lowest bid, so it was
mm,
basically, on price. But what ended up happening is that I ended up calling all of the manufacturers for like chain link fences, and basically being like, okay, well, give me a list of your best installer, and it was a win-win scenario, right? Like, you
mm,
give me a list of your best installer, and then they're probably gonna buy the fence from you. So
mm,
you win, I win, they win, and so they had no problem just saying like, hey, these are the companies that we work with, and so I contacted a handful of them, and to this date, we're still, working with the company that we hired back then. And so because we had won that first contract, now this is May of 2020, so you know what's happening in the world with
mm,
COVID.
mm,
My I I'm thinking like, okay, well, I need an assistant to help out with,
mm,
just certain things. And so the first role was kind of like that. I don't think I hated the word, by the way. Like right now I have a EA, executive assistant, but
mm,
like I always hated the word assistant, like
mm,
because it was like, I don't need help, like I don't need
mm.
a,
Yeah.
aid.
Mm,
But no, she's amazing, and and now I'm like, okay, embracing like, yeah, we do need some help in life.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I ended up hiring like basically two other people. So like my brother, um, you know, uh, the assistant, and then somebody else that was just more on like the finance payroll side. And so I was basically ramping up for like this,
Mm,
huge windfall. And luckily we did have enough revenue come in that year. We actually only won two contracts that year. We probably lost like 15 during that quarter.
mm,
So it hurt, and part of, especially when you're doing it by yourself, this has been such a like grassroots type of business to build. You're also accumulating a lot of debt, and that, and it's like, and now I'm kind of like, okay, it's been a lot of debt, but it's also like you can kind of see the investments we've made on the business, on our clients, right? On being able to stay alive. And so yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
So, um, yeah, that comment, what we're gonna that comment about assistance, I just want to say, I'm in the world of talent, right? And I see too many people who don't understand just the immense value of an assistant.
Hmm.
I have Jelka, who lovingly we call Jay. She is my assistant, and she makes my life kind of go round, right? She makes sure everything is complete and it's done, as opposed
Right.
to just like bouncing everywhere else. And I mean, it's not a vanity thing or anything, but it's just like to make things work, we need help. And
Yeah.
and actually, we can probably talk about like the how to actually work with an assistant effectively, but that in itself, people want to hire COOs immediately or whatever, but it's like, do you have an assistant first? Like,
Hmm.
start there. Administratively, have them help you take care of your emails and scheduling and just that
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
itself.
Yeah, right now I can say I have a rock star in my team, and I have Alice, who is interesting. She's, and she's kind of doing it on her own, but she's like sending me like in the mornings, like, okay, this is what to expect during the day, like
Mm,
in the evenings, like, okay, this is what happened. And as CEOs, it's just there's so many moving parts, right? Like we're dealing with,
yeah,
not just the workforce, but it's like you're dealing with the banks, and the like the
life.
political, but like how is that
Yeah,
affecting? And it's like you have to just have such a, almost like you have to know what's going to happen, right, all the time.
yeah.
And so being able to have somebody, and when I talk to her, it's like, no, I like love doing this, and I want to be part of that background team, kind of helping things really work and turn and move.
Mm,
And so yeah, I completely embrace it now. I think it was just kind of like me with a little bit of personal beef with the word assistant,
sure,
but I
sure.
got over it. I got
Yeah,
over it. I was like, you
yeah.
know what? I
Me
need
too.
help.
I had the same
I
thing.
am not, I am not, I am a superwoman, but I'm not, it's not beyond me for me to not ask for help. So,
Exactly. Well, shout out to our EAs here. Well, let me just change the question I asked you a little bit ago. I asked about like the person you hire that changed the trajectory of the business. So you started with a chain link contract, fence contract, and I'm sure you've won other smaller contracts and you built upon that. But where was that point where it was like, man, this is the growth, and this is what allowed us to have a hockey stick, and was that because of someone you hired or a key hire there? Was there somebody that really just added so much value to you, whether it's a partner or a mentor or whomever, like an employee, that you were able to
yeah.
capitalize on that?
Yeah, I know you're gonna hate my answers because I feel like
It's
you want me to be
it's
like,
your
this is
answers.
one person.
No, I
No,
mean, if
I
there is
think it
one, there
was,
is. If not, mm,
no, it was all these little things. It was all
mm,
these little things, right,
mm,
that kind of just evolved throughout
mm,
time.
mm,
I think that I'm not gonna say who they are, but one of the things that happens in construction sometimes is that you partner up with like larger general contractors
mm,
to be able to do work and to be able to like learn, what they are, how they're doing things,
mm,
and learn processes and learn, because remember, like, I started a construction company out of the military. It's not like I was working for a general contractor
mm,
and came into the private industry. Like, I literally had to start from scratch, like learn
mm,
all this stuff, like one by one. I'm, I'm better at it. I'm better
mm,
at it, but I am not one to say, hey, I need help with this and this. If anything, I'm more of like, okay, what program is doing the kind of things that I need to
mhm,
know? And then
mhm,
let me just like do those programs. So I'm
mm.
more of like maybe more just like the academic or more structured type learning, not so much like calling
Me too.
someone and saying, hey, I need your help for this. I need you to walk me through this. And so, and also at the time, it was like I didn't really know who to call, right? Because you don't
Yeah.
know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so we did partner up with a larger GC who, we did some contracts with, and those were like very large, like very big turning points for LJV
Mm.
because, we were so young still as a company. Like right now we're 7 years old. And so we're at this point it's like, okay, we're trying to find our place in the market. Like where do we
Mm.
best fit?
Mm.
Who is LJV,
Mm.
right? And
Mm.
and I didn't just want to be like this checkbox
Yep.
for a contract, right? Like, oh, you gotta hire, women, you gotta hire veterans, you
Mm.
gotta hire minorities.
Mm.
You are that person. Like, I just didn't want to do that, right? Like, to me, it was extremely important to bring a value to those projects. And so, understanding that I was kind of in a situation where it was kind of a check the box, or it was a check the box situation, really made me kind of open my eyes. And it was like, you know what? Yes, we can make all this more revenue and we can like put a bunch of money in our top line and maybe gain some like small margins off the bottom, but is it really worth the squeeze?
Mm.
Is it really is it really who you want to be?
Mm.
And so it was a very hard decision because you you're expected, and especially from like banks and bonding and even like community is like, growth is expected, right? Like if you're doing well, you're growing. And so my mindset has shifted in that way, in terms of like, you know what, even if I do, like, even if this year we do 4 million, but we have better margins and we have just a more peaceful way of doing things and we have better
Yeah.
clients and we have like, I'd
Yes.
rather do that all
Yes.
day, every day. And so, my mind has really, and it's not like I was like hungry for growth, because that wasn't even the case. I was hungry to learn. I was
Mm.
hungry to have exposure. I
Mm.
was hungry to have like past performance. A lot of the work you win when you're in construction is like based on what have you done before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kept, being in this spot where it's like, okay, I want to go after, I know I can do this for you, but then I have to prove that I've done it before.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I kept putting ourselves, and not just me, but like the company, the people that were in part of the team, I kept putting us in situations where, things were not clear. Things had did not have a lot of structure. We were basically at the mercy of maybe another GC or maybe even a client. Like even having like bad clients is not good
Mm.
for business. And so, what's really now different, and what has helped us be where we are now, is like, okay, we're clear about the kind of scope of work and the kind of projects that we want to go after. We are clear on who we are as an organization. Like, I know we're talking a lot about people and team building. Is like, I need dynamic people that have this mindset of, I can do this, right? Like I need people that are not going to be like, oh, my resume says I can do one, two, three,
Mm.
four. And I think when you're a veteran and when you're coming from the military, like it's
Mm.
just so easy for you to understand that, because what branch were you, Freddie?
Army.
Army.
Mm.
Perfect. Great. Army. It's like, yes, you have your job, but
Mm.
you're a soldier first,
Mm.
right? Like your duty is
Mm.
to be a soldier first. Like
Mm.
that, they literally ingrained that to us. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was a truck driver, but I also knew that I needed to know how to clear a building. I
Mm.
knew all these other things that were not
The
necessarily
fundamentals.
part of my duty as a
Mm-hmm.
truck driver.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, the biggest change right now is like the kind of clients we choose, the kind of people we want to have, and just, being able to be like truly nimble, and have this just mindset of like, let's bring it on, let's do this. And not because it's hard, because it's unreasonable.
Yeah.
It's hard because it's like we're just being able to solve, come up with solutions for
Mm.
things that are maybe too complex for people. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're also, it's
Rambling.
hard because you're also trying to figure out what's like important to you, right? Like
Hmm.
what's important to the business, what's important to you personally as you're going through this journey. I mean,
Yeah,
entrepreneurs have the habit of, I mean, in the beginning, we're doing everything and we're saying yes to
yeah,
everything and just chasing the revenue, right? Chasing the dollars because we need to get dollars in to function. But then, like you said, bad business is actually worse than no business. There's a point, right? Bad work is worse than no
right.
point. No work. So, yeah, I don't want to get into a pricing game. I want to understand for us as a executive recruiting firm, as a search firm, we don't want to just say yes to everything and or just cut prices because everyone else is doing it. We have a certain value, and we're gonna be playing on that to our clients so that they can pay us for that. So, with
Yeah,
that,
and those and it's amazing because it's like all those little things that have happened, right? All those people, all
hmm,
the things in between. And this is why I can't just like pinpoint to one thing.
yeah,
Is kind of gotten to us to that point, right? And this is where,
I
yeah, I
got
would
you.
say
The
today,
journey.
July 2nd, 2025, I feel like we are an organization that has a very, very clear mission,
Hmm,
has a very, very clear just understanding of who we are. Like,
hmm,
right? It's like they ask you, like, who do you want to be when you grow up? Like,
hmm,
we know who we want to be when
hmm,
we grow up. And, there's nobody knocking on our door that's kind of like shifting our journey or shifting us to a point where, because I call them like shiny objects sometimes when you're like first starting. It's like all these opportunities and
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
you know and you're just like squirrel, 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 and then
Uh-huh.
all of a sudden you're just just taking time. And I always say time is a non-renewable resource, so how we spend it, and the peace of mind, right? Like having being able to just run a business that you do have like this peace of mind to be
Hmm.
able to be the best for your clients is extremely important to me nowadays.
That's fantastic. So, if you had answered the question like I wanted you to, and you said, yeah, there were these one or two people that were just like key, I was gonna follow up and say, how did you meet them? How did you get to hire them, right? But let's
Hmm.
let's go and just let's go on that topic and say, if you look back at some of your best employees and best hires, what was it that really made them successful in your organization?
Yeah, I would say they're probably the ones that are still here. But I did things wrong, Freddie. It's like, they say like don't hire just people because they're your family, or they act like you, or they're like the better version of you.
Yeah.
I've been guilty of hiring people because I just have like this vision for them, right? Like sometimes I feel like I can see talent and then people are not really seeing it in themselves, and it's just like, okay, well I can coach you up and I can like make you this superstar, and it's like you're going through the motions and you're like, I believe in you. And I I just think that that's just not a good recipe. If anything, it's a recipe for disaster, because people have to want it themselves, right? They have to have that mindset, and they have to have like they have to be there, right? Like you can't like we run on EOS. I'm sure you've heard of EOS, or you probably run on EOS yourself. Is like, do you get it? Have the capacity to do it? And
Do
it's
you
like
want
you
it?
can't will it for them. You can't will,
Hmm.
you can't do that. And so I
Exactly.
would say the best people have been the people that have just been resilient. I'll give
Mm.
you an example. I have a young woman who she's been with us from, I want to say, 2 maybe 3 years now. She went to school for like finance and econ, and funny enough, her father had a construction company, and it's mind-boggling like how resilient she is, and like how, and I mean, she's in our finance, right? So she sees our P&L, she sees our balance sheet, she sees like that, hey, sometimes it's a struggle even meeting payroll that week, right? And it's like nothing is like trumping her down. Like nothing is like it's almost like I don't know, maybe she's pretending, but it's like she's solid. Like she's like very solid in that way. And we actually ended up having a cybersecurity attack, call it an attack, back in December, where somebody like interjected
Wow.
emails, and she was kind of part of, well, she not kind of, she was part of that. And it's like you can have somebody that something happens and they would just run away or lie or make excuses, or you can have somebody that's gonna like step up and be like, you know what, this happened, this is how it happened, this is how I'm facing
Mm,
it, and this is how I'm moving past that. And
mm,
it's like it just, I see it
cool.
time and time and again. So yeah, I mean, I have multiple examples. I mean, my team right now is small. We're like 10 people right now, but I would say that the people we have are just extremely driven, extremely dynamic, and they're resilient. And I think that, unfortunately, we're at the point in our organization where, the moment that you are not that, this is not the right organization for you. And I think that that's also the piece that I've made, terms with, is like, and it's fine. It's like, okay, luckily we're like project based, right? So it's like, okay,
Hmm.
we didn't, yeah, it does suck to like retrain and have to go out and hire more people, but at the same time, I don't see it like a loss. I see it as like, okay, well, you are here for this period of time because you serve this purpose, and that purpose is no longer either a thing for them or a thing for us, and we're completely okay with that. And it's like, let's move forward. But I am not gonna back down on the fact that we need that kind of mindset, right? It's like at MIT, actually, I'm taking a leading organizations class, and
Mm,
like absolutely obsessed because she's our professor is like from England, and she's just very just strong and clear. And
mm,
she talks about the delta between building and measuring people, right? Like
mm,
you build, when you build, you're bold and clear, and when you measure, it all needs to like kind of just transfer over to the P&L. Of course, MIT is all about math. It's like X1, and then your Y1, and then as you're learning, you're like actually looking at what is that delta between those two things, and then you're making more decisions based on that, and then that's how you truly become a learning organization. So people need to be okay with that. People need to be okay with like moving through those different phases, and just kind of saying like, hey, it's I did it. Some of the mistakes I've made, I've been hard on myself. And then there's somebody amazing who actually runs our HR.
mm,
We outsource our HRs, another veteran-owned business.
mm,
His name is Kevin. If you want a great HR company, definitely
mm,
hire Bravo. But I remember one time we're having a conversation, and I'm just like, "Ah, I made this mistake and I made that mistake." And he said something so key, Freddie. He was like, Liseth, you made that decision with the information you had at that point. Like, you're literally judging yourself right now based on what you now know. And that's just not,
mm.
it's just not fair. It just makes no sense. And I think ever since then I was like, you're right. Like, I didn't do it because I was being malicious, or I was just like trying to be evil. Like, it's like, hey, I thought that this would be the only way, or the thing to do, and I can't judge it based on like the new information I learned from it.
Yeah, you can't tell the future, can you? You have a
I
magic
try
eight ball
to.
or something?
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's why I'm going to MIT. I'm trying to predict the future. You'll be surprised how
yeah,
much they can predict though nowadays.
that's amazing too. That could be a whole nother conversation. But so let me ask you with what you said about your class, right? And what you're learning, just the difference between building versus measuring. What, uh, how, for the measuring part, I'm curious how you quantify intangible things, like for example grit, like what you talked
Mm.
about, running through walls, resilience, learning from mistakes, personality, your just energy. And how do you measure that?
That's a great question. I thought the same thing. And you know
Mm,
what? You do it through 360s because
mm,
if there's like 40 people that are telling you the same exact thing, like, hey, um, you have a poor attitude or you're not showing up with, and it's also like the questions you ask, right? But having those analysis and being like real and like, I did my 360 last year and I sent it to like 15 people
mm.
and making sure you're kind of getting data from those people. But it is hard. I think in some of those more subjectivity type of things, it is hard. And so, to me, it's like maybe like a mix of the those kind of surveys, but your P&L, right? Like, if you have a lot of grit and you have a lot of motion, but you're you're just
Your
stalled
projects
in
are
your
suffering.
revenues and
Yeah,
and it's like your
yeah,
clients hate you because you're just not moving. That's those two things don't correlate. And so we just need to be more honest with ourselves and really look at the data and look at and analyze it, like what is the cause and effect and why is that happening. And so I think that a lot of times we're just not true to ourselves. I mean, I've been guilty of this, of like just kind of like, oh well, no, it's not happening because of that. And you can't do that because that's not how you learn, right? So just kind of like looking
yeah.
at the data and like looking at why did this happen and how and what can I learn from it to like make different decisions so that it doesn't happen again is extremely important. So yeah, you gotta have and I think part of it is like having a psychological safety at work and being able to have people that just tell you the truth. Like even for your personal life, right? Like you can have two types of friends. You can have friends that like just tell you how amazing you are and you're the best thing since sliced bread, or you can have people that are going to be like, "Hey, listen, like you're doing X, Y, and Z and this is just how I see it or whatever." Like you got to have both. But if you just have one data point, then yeah, I don't know, to me it's like you're moving through life a little blind, right? Because you're not seeing the whole picture. So
That's a good
I
point.
I'm like, be brutally honest with me. Like just tell me. And
Mm,
and I think that my most frustrating thing with sometimes even like employees is like because how corporations were built and then there's like this hierarchy, chain of command, and it's like
mm,
I don't care about any of that. Like
mm,
I to me is like I am the same as like the lowest ranking person in the team. And if
mm.
anything, that person's voice needs to be heard the most because they're probably they're probably doing a lot more for a lot of other people than everybody else,
And
thinks. So
they're seeing the bigger picture somehow.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're in the mud, like right. So if you're
Yeah.
in the mud, it's like I
Yeah.
want to talk to you about what's going on.
Mm,
And
mm,
so I don't know. I just think that it's really hard to to shift people's perception and be like, hey, my open door policy is truly open. Like I'm here for
mm,
you. And so I always and if you are that leader who's like, hey, I have an open door policy, make sure you that's true. Make sure that you're able to actually listen to the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when the
mm.
ugly does come, you can't just be like you can't retaliate or you can't like turn the conversation around because then you lose the
You're
trust,
fired.
right? And all this stuff, yeah, like all this stuff is like trust
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think I think we just forget that we're just people at the end of the day. And
Mm,
people get so honed in their titles and
mm,
their their awards, whatever. Like
mm.
no, you're here one day and maybe you're not here the next. So yeah, it's for me, it's all disposable.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Everyone is disposable.
Oh God!
It's kind of
Don't say
it's
that.
kind of
There will
bad
be
to
a
say
clip
that.
about this. About
I mean, well,
this is a
I mean, like even me though, right? Even
right.
you, we're just a. I mean, somebody else can probably do what I'm doing far better than I could. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, never. Yeah, I definitely have that dose of just realization and humility. So this whole 360 thing, I'm gonna go back to that. The 360. Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, take something subjective like perception and then put it on a quantifiable basis and then measure it, right? I love that. Were you able to then build this in your process for recruiting or hiring or interviewing? Were you able to incorporate that into
Yeah,
yours?
to be quite honest with you, this is
Mm,
like fresh information, like
mm,
fresh off the press. I just had
sure,
classes past weekend and it was
sure.
like, oh, because a lot of people had the same questions. Like,
Hmm.
okay, I can measure, budget variances and I can measure like how
Hmm.
many contracts we win, like all that's
Hmm.
like, okay, quantifiable data, but like how do you measure attitudes and how do you measure grits and stuff
Hmm.
like that? So
Hmm.
I will keep you posted on how these 360s goes.
Yeah.
We actually, I think the biggest piece with the 360s is that you can't just go to ChatGPT and be like, hey, give me a 360 template or give me 360 questions. You got to really think about what matters to your organization. So we
Yeah.
just HR just kind of did their first kind of draft on those questions, but one of the things that I'm going to be working over the next few days is like how do those point to the kind of values and the kind of people that we want to have and make sure that those are the kind of
Mm.
questions we're being asked. Outside of that, I am I'm a big fan of
You're figuring it out,
psychometrics. Big,
of
big
course.
fan of psychometrics. We use Culture Index at LJV. You
Mm.
cannot apply to LJV without taking this assessment. And, you know, my biggest thing is I don't want to put a person, and we've
Mm.
done that. Actually, before this assessment was a thing at LJV, we realized that we had a ton of people that just did not have the personality or the behavioral traits for that role,
Mm.
and it's like, I'll give you an example. Once upon a time, we had somebody who their like autonomy and their decision making was like at a 0 or 1.
Mm.
I am extremely, I'm like when how I lead is completely opposite. Like I need leaders. I need people who are just gonna make decisions. I want like if you're gonna fail, fail fast. Like I hate micromanaging people. One of the things that I need to work on or that I'm seeing a delta on myself as a leader is like taking more time to be clear about the expectations and coach people up. And sometimes I feel like, well, I already said it, and then it's like, no, you gotta maybe say it like five, six, seven, maybe 10 times. That has taken some time for me to learn. And I'm gonna do it because I do care about people like learning through that. But I gotta say, for me, it takes just so much more energy because again, it's like you just tell me things once and I'm like, whew, gone, done. Like let's map it together, let's do it.
But some people
But it's like
don't
some
function like
people are
that.
just not like that.
Hmm.
And so when we did these assessments, it's like, Jesus, this person's like at a 0 1. Like no wonder and it's crazy because it's like you told them to do something, they did one, two, three, four,
Hmm.
five, but then they wouldn't do anything else at all.
Uh-huh.
And it's like,
Cause they,
okay, well, there's all these other things going on if you can't like pick up on that. So we realized that that's just not the kind of person we need
yeah,
or makes sense for the organization. And so I think that the faster you can like map and
assess that.
align people,
Right.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like seeing into a person. So my, I guess my the biggest thing that I want to happen is that we hire people that are in their superpower, that are, like, not to, I mean, I know you know about culture index, of
Of
course, right?
course. Of course. Yep.
Yeah. So it's like their top
They're in their
their top
quadrant.
chart.
Right.
Yeah, they're in their top chart and their bottom chart match completely. Like when you look
Oh,
at my
interesting.
assessment,
Yeah.
Freddie,
Yeah.
my charts are like identical. Like I don't
Yeah.
change, I don't change I don't
Yeah,
go from
change
being
how
like
you
an art like
act.
I'm an architect. Yeah, I'm an architect.
Yeah.
I don't go from being an architect to being like an enterpriser, right? Like, and that's the
Yeah.
thing is like, yes, you can be somebody else, but that's just gonna take so much more energy. And so yeah,
So,
like
let
I
me
it's interesting because I do modify a little bit. I was
mm,
modifying my B trait backwards a little bit, and that's something that I've I was like, okay, I'm a
So we're
CEO, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're getting very technical here. And for people that don't know culture index and they don't know like what the heck we're talking about, it's essentially we I've done a episode here once of with some folks that really rely on it, but it essentially it has like seven traits of how it assesses you. And B index, for example, B measures how social you are. You more social or more analytical, right? And you can go
Yeah.
right or left based on the mean of the population that took this assessment, and you'll be like statistically like how far are you from the mean. So if you're further
Thank
out,
you,
you're
Freddie.
more.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's what this culture index does, and it kind of puts you in a quadrant of more visionary folks or people that think more tactically. And yeah, I just had a conversation with somebody about this culture index psychometrics assessments. Fantastic, right? We need that, but it really helps with those who are far off from what we're looking for, but it's not
Hmm.
the end all be all, right? It's like you
No,
don't live and die by it. So you have to balance that as well. Um,
absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
with one thing, what you said with the, having to tell people multiple times, there's a, from the book Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. I believe it was from that book. I read it, but he had a cool tool. He calls it DOD. What is the definition of done? And
Mm,
because if you clarify and specifically paint that picture, what does done look like? How is done defined in this task? It helps just communicate better, because I am the same way. I have a lot of thoughts, I have a lot of things, and I ask people to do it, but sometimes they don't finish it because they don't know what I want, right? Or they finish it and I'm like, no, this is all incorrect. So to start off with like what is the definition that I think is done,
I
can be
like
a
that.
really decent tool. Um, okay, we talked about hiring, we talked about all of this. I want to talk a little bit about just culture, right?
Hmm.
Shaping culture. You have all of these hard charters, you have all of these highly autonomous leaders, you have people that believe in the mission, that will run through brick walls. How do you make sure culture is going the right direction with that group of people?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a work in process. I think it's kind of starts with with you as a leader and how you showing up and kind of what you're doing, right? Because if
Mm.
like you're telling people like I want you to do X, Y, and Z, but then you're doing the opposite, it doesn't add up, right? And so
Yeah.
I would say it's culture is hard. I think culture is one of the
Mm.
the hardest things you can
Yeah.
do as an organization, and is one of those things that it just morphs into
It
like
can.
whoever is in those sectors, right? So it's like sometimes you actually don't even have control, and you think
Mm.
I always thought like, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z, I'm gonna build X, Y, and Z culture, but sometimes like the input is not really matching the output, and
Yeah.
so it's um it's a work in process. It's a work
Yeah.
in process. If it was for me, I would have a culture of, people that understood that what I'm really trying to build here is like is an organization that drives by purpose, that's driven by purpose, that you are there's like challenges, but you are kind of like
Mm.
just battling those challenges. Like,
Mm.
construction is very difficult, and
Mm.
unfortunately we don't have like it's all different, right? Like every I wish, some people are like, what's your schedule like? Like, I don't know. Like, tell me what my schedule is next week. It might
Mm.
change. Don't
Mm.
ask me what it's gonna be 3 weeks from now because I don't
Mm.
know. I have no
Mm.
clue. And we just depend on so many other people, especially as general
Yeah.
contractors, right? Like we're depending on our clients, we're depending on our trade partners, we're depending on just information, and and then you have like tariffs, and then you have like law changes, and then you have like there's
Yeah.
just all these factors that come into play. So to me, I don't know. I don't want it to sound like a broken record, but the kind of culture I aspire to be building is one that's continuously learning, one that's continuously seeing challenges as opportunities, and it's yeah, it's just kind of like waking up with a sense of purpose. Like purpose is one of our values for a reason. You know, I always say I started this company to work for a company that I wanted to work for. And so
Mm,
having like work life balance, the true work life balance, right? Like,
mm,
you
mm,
know, it's important. It's important to have a organization that not just cares about, the things we have to do, but like that we care
mm.
about our families, that we care about some of this other stuff, which is why, you know, I wish I could just change the whole gap system in the financial accounting, because it's like it's so tough. And that's where I think like it's
Uh-huh.
like the rubber meets the road, because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
especially for a new company, is like you're
Mm,
starting, you need to create revenue, then you create the revenue, but then you need to create you need to have these margins, you need to be competitive, you need to, and so it's all these conflicting things, and sometimes those things are literally at odds with each other. And so
mm.
it's an ongoing process, but I would say,
Yeah.
because of the experiences we've had in the last few years, I guess I'm more clear than ever that I want to be bold. I want to be intolerant of just wrong mindset, and I just need dynamic
Yeah.
people. I guess like that's the biggest culture change. Like we need people that are like, I'm not afraid to take out the trash, or take a hammer and
Mm.
start demoing. Like I need everybody at LJV to have that kind of mindset.
That's cool. Um, that's I love that. I especially about seeing challenges as opportunities as a cultural trait. You're right. I value that, and I've never really penned that, right? But that's something that I want to keep in mind as well. Yes, I've heard like there's so many definitions of culture, but I've heard somebody say it's just culture is like when it's how an organization acts or solves a problem when not given direction or no guidance. It's like how does it actually do things in it by itself? And sometimes no matter how hard or how loudly the leader yells and directs, culture, I mean it's shaped by the people that actually get shit done.
Right.
So if you just remain like you said, just be repetitive and don't contradict yourself and lead by example. I think that's the best environment for that healthy culture to cultivate. So thanks for that. We got a little bit more, but I'm gonna just ask you this other final thing, and it'll be a mix of two best advice for just hiring people, hiring the right people, vetting for the right people, and also like any non-traditional hiring strategy or hiring tactic you've used in the past.
Yeah, I would say the first thing is you got to be very crystal clear of what you need. I think sometimes
Hmm.
we're growing as an organization, and we're kind of just like adding bodies, like, right? It's like construction. Oh, I need more project managers. Let me just hire a project manager. Let me hire a project manager that has experience in construction. What does your organization need? What kind of skills, what kind of behavioral traits, like just being very clear with that, I think is extremely
Hmm.
important. You know, Freddie, we are in the, I mean, to me, this is like the .com age, right? Like we're in the cusp of the workforce and how we work being completely different. I remember once
Hmm.
upon a time we had a what were they called, content writer.
Mm.
Like, I think that following year, ChatGPT came into play, and it was like, I remember having the conversation with this person, like,
Yeah.
hey, you're I'm not saying your role, and I'm not saying we're going to fire you, but what I am saying is that you really need to be cognizant of the fact that there is this new technology that is literally doing what we're paying you to do, and I need you to like look above and beyond, or look past the scope of work, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
just really change the way you're doing things. And so being clear from the get-go, having doing your due diligence. This is something that sometimes we want to hire our friends, we want to hire family members, we want to hire the people we know. What happens when an organization needs people right away? They just like start calling the people they know. I mean,
Yep.
I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
it's so it's just not the right way to do things, and it's, if anything, is gonna put you in a really bad predicament, or sometimes like hurt that relationship that you have with that person that you care about. And so doing your due diligence, like
Yeah.
looking at references, seeing if this person is really what you need. And I would say the last thing, and this is kind of the newest thing we learned that as an organization, is like, is this person going to be revenue producing or cost reducing, or are they just going to be an add-on because you want to add value to your organization? And those two, three things are very good and, necessary sometimes, but be very, very clear about how that is going to translate, and, how many, how long you're going to have to train them for, and how you're going to train them. And so, I think
Mm-hmm.
now more than ever, we're just like, and I'm because I'm 100% owner, and I don't have a board, I don't have like a VC or PE firm like
Mm-hmm.
breathing down my throat. I've kind of been very loose with just doing things because I can, and just doing things because
Mm-hmm.
it's like what we need, or like me, because I'm such a visionary. Like, I'm almost like
Experimenting.
trying to over, yeah, and I'm over,
Mm.
like, I'm like hiring for the future, but like,
Yeah.
it's just not how it works. And it's really how you can get yourself into trouble, especially with overhead. So just staying
Mm.
lean, staying nimble,
Mm.
and yeah, I would say those would be my advices for hiring. And hire
Huge.
slow, fire fast.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That's all tremendous advice. That's all. It's all like lessons you've learned from experience. So thank you for sharing. Do you have? Did I ask you any or not ask you anything I should have asked you, or something that on this topic of hiring, culture, talent, all of this? Is there something that you want to finish off with?
Um, I guess I
I
would
think. I mean,
do the last
you've
thing I would
wrapped it up
say.
nicely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
no, I
Go
guess
ahead.
the last thing I would say, and the thing I'm doing now more, I am a very technical person. Like, right, sometimes I'm
Mm,
like describing something and I'm getting into the
mm,
weeds with things.
mm,
Um, on that B trait, I am selectively social. So
mm,
one of the things that I'm doing a lot more is socializing, and just getting to know my people, like getting to know them, getting to know their life. And it's like, it is an ongoing process. I still have a lot of work to do with that, but I have found that it's very important. Sometimes I come to the office just because I have to do something. Like, nowadays I'm trying to like come to the office just because I want to like maybe socialize. And so
mm.
I never lose
That's
sight of
great.
that, especially in this like hybrid AI moving workforce environment. And I think we do need to kind of
Mm,
get back to the basics a little bit more in terms of just knowing your people. So that's something that I'm saying out loud. So because I'm keeping myself personally accountable for it, and it's something that I definitely need to work on and have a lot of work to do.
Well, I mean, just acknowledging that's huge, Lizeth. And yeah, that that is exactly something we oftentimes just neglect. But yeah, if you know your people, you get to relate with them better, which means you can lead them better. So that yeah, I completely agree. That's a tremendous insight. Well, I had a great time chatting with you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being
Likewise,
authentic
likewise.
and
We
raw
finally
here.
made it happen.
I know we made it, finally made it happen. So for everyone else, you can find Liseth LinkedIn and just follow what she's up to because she's crushing it. And yeah, I appreciate your time and to our listeners, now go build your A team.